And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking all the Baku Fallout, all the fallout from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I got that out. This is like my third attempt to say that. However, Oscar Piastri on getting that second win. Well done. McLaren on leading the constructors. We kind of talked about that. So, Red Bull, what happened? I mean, I thought they were going to do quite well come the practice session. Friday was looking good. They were back on track. Sergio Perez was looking good as well. And although I don't quite think it's a crisis with a capital C, I do feel that Red Bull are most certainly going to be scratching their heads. So before we get into the enigma that is Red Bull's 2024 season, let's talk about Mercedes here, shall we? And Lewis Hamilton's tough race. So Toto Wolff has responded to Lewis Hamilton's "You see how I'm driving this thing" when he was commenting about his not so favourite Mercedes, otherwise known as the W15. He endured, as we all know, a difficult race, having to start from the pit lane and then saw the back of the Haas for quite a lot of it, as in Ollie Behrman. So he started from the pit lane. Yep, Mercedes opted to give him a brand new super fresh power unit. Didn't quite work out for him. It wasn't, unfortunately, Brazil 2021. He had qualified 7th, though, 2 places behind George Russell. So he did look to finish outside the points in what I thought was one of the worst races for Lewis Hamilton this year. He was kind of circulating in 11th. But this big crash between Sergio Perez and Sainz promoted him to 9th, securing him a small bundle of points from the Grand Prix. Toto Wolff, he took to the team radio to afterwards to tell Lewis, good to make it in the end, that was a horror race. And I can so relate to it, we can all relate, at least we have taken the penalty now, let's move forward and look forward. Hamilton didn't respond to the radio call. Wolff's radio call, with race engineer Pit Bonneting telling his driver well done as he returned to the pits. Now, Mercedes had opted to fit Hamilton with a new power unit as he'd suffered an engine failure in Australia earlier this season, meaning he was going to have to serve this penalty at one point at one of the coming final races, essentially. So Hamilton's grid slot had resulted in Mercedes fitting that new power unit, and Wolff said, I think there are 2 difficult philosophies we've discussed at length. One is that you just swallow the pill here because starting P7, we don't know where that would have gone, and then doing it in Austin. But we feel Austin is an opportunity, so that was the decision. Now, speaking to media, Wolff said, we knew it was going to be a race of misery because it's so difficult to overtake in Baku, and that's what it was. The moment you came close, you overheated the tyres. Hamilton, during the race, he'd radioed to Pete Bonington, Bono, and he said, see how I'm driving this thing, suggesting there's something fairly unusual. And asked about his comment after the race, he revealed a component on the car hadn't been correctly built, which was discovered after Saturday evening, and that contributed to the team also making suspension changes. And even he said it was the worst balance I've probably ever had, one of the worst balances. Basically, I had so much front end but no rears. It's not the way you drive. I had to yank the steering wheel back. To break the traction from the front. And that's quite interesting. And as we know, Lewis Hamilton likes a nice rear end, doesn't he? Very much so. So on to Red Bull, okay? And Horner on Red Bull's fight back. Yes, as we know, they've surrendered the Constructors' Championship lead to McLaren by 20 points now. And Christian Horner is basically saying that Red Bull must now attack. So Oscar Piastri's victory really, really showed up. Red Bull, as did Lando Norris's race in the end, finishing ahead of Max Verstappen despite starting way down in 15th. And then we had Sergio Perez's late whoops-a-daisy. Now, Norris closed on Verstappen as well in the driver's title, but only 3 points. But it's still, again, what looked like to be Max Stappen was going to increase it. And we even said, is that championship over? No. Still outside the windows of likely, but still. But Horner pointed to the damage limitation, explaining, I mean, if you look at it before the weekend, based on where we were in Monza, what has he taken 3 points off him? Question mark. I mean, yeah, fair enough. You got a point, Horner, but still, I don't think it was a good race when you look at the fact that Lando Norris pretty much started on the back few rows of the grid. However, he conceded it's frustrating, particularly after when Lando qualified, amen, that we didn't beat him. Thankfully, he hasn't scored big points, but we've got to build on what we've learnt already, and there's still a lot of racing to do. We took a big hit in the Constructors today, but we've got 20 points as deficit now, so we've got to attack. Still, they've got 7 races to go, he said, including 2 sprints, and there's a lot of points up for grabs and a lot of different circuits coming up. Now, Verstappen's lack of cohesion was evidenced by Perez out-qualifying him for the first time since Miami last year. last year, Miami. Now, the Mexican displayed his best form of the season, only to have it end in the wall. Yeah, so there we go. I mean, frustratingly, I think Horner said, because with Checo, he certainly should have been on the podium. I think he could have actually won the race had it not been for he lost a lot of time behind Albon initially and then Lando whilst he was on the new tyres. I don't think he would have won, no. But who knows? I think he would have got on the podium, but Lando backed him up, which allowed Oscar to keep track position. And I think without that, we would have been ahead of Oscar. Yeah, probably. And on the incident himself, you can quite clearly see that Carl, well, we've spoken about that, but he's clearly, obviously blaming Carlos Sainz, isn't he? So, but we've got some footage, though, in relation to what happened. I'm going to swap the screens around. Social media is awash this is from Planet F1, with previously unseen footage of Perez confronting Carlos Sainz, where he appeared to shove him. I've seen it. It's not really a shove. It's kind of like a moderately light push. But as we know, they crashed heavily. And Perez obviously let rip over the way. He was very upset. What the bleep is he doing? And on Sainz's part, he was kind of like all confused, poor guy. What's going on here? I'll show you the footage. Wait, let's see, shall we? Here we go. So, bear with me. Here's the footage. So here's Sergio Perez just after the crash at Baku on the penultimate lap with Carlos Sainz. And here we go. And as he comes up to me, he appears to... There you go. He appears to like shove his head... Well, push his head backwards there. Here we go again. Look around here. Donk. And one more time. Donk. I mean, to be fair. But, I mean, yes, it is, why is he touching him? He's got no need to touch him. If you remember, George Russell did that to Valtteri Bottas. Amateur hour. I know. Yes. Tensions. Passion. Stuff like that. Sport. Adrenaline. Yes, I know. All the defenders may well come out. However, you don't do that at work. When you get upset or get really crossed. Yeah, it might be different. Your work's not a sport. But still, he's at work. Shouldn't really be doing that. I don't think. I mean, swearing on the radio is not great, but I kind of understand. You got all your adrenaline in there still. But then to go, even move someone's helmet. Yes, that was in frustration. Bit silly, Sergio. Bit silly. Moving on, shall we? So that's Christian Horner and Sergio Perez. Let's talk about Max Verstappen, shall we? And Max Verstappen, I mean... well, there's the crash implications. Sergio Perez's bad setup. Verstappen's bad setup. Yeah, and that's he admits. He kind of paid the price for what ended up being a wrong setup decision as he heads into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And sadly, it couldn't be reversed for the race. He was much happier with the car, though, after a floor update was fast-tracked for Baku, but an attempt to optimise it for qualifying, let's just say it didn't go particularly well. He was unable to make any changes for qualifying. He complained during the race of having zero brake issues, lack of rear grip. He just did not look like Max Verstappen. He eventually finished 6th, gaining 2 places from that penultimate lap crash that eliminated teammate Perez and Carlos. He said, I think we paid the price with the change that we made into qualifying that made it just really difficult to drive. And he said the car was jumping around a lot. Like the wheels almost not. He almost described it as three-wheeling it around some of the corners. And sadly, he did blame the setup. So at least there's a reason why they were not as good as we thought. The issue is going to be when we go to Singapore, but I guess we'll talk about that in our Singapore Grand Prix preview. So, last but not least, let's have a chat about Williams, shall we? Williams very much on the up. Plenty of opportunity left, there is, for Williams. That's at least the prophecy that James Vowles said. And they can make more gains in the second half of the season after the windfall result in Azerbaijan. It now sees them ahead of Alpine in the championship. Well done. And he praised both Albon and Franco Colapinto. Yeah, so, I mean, with Logan Sargent gone, I think you can kind of justify that now, sad as it is, if you are a Logan Sargent fan. But it's not easy doing a one-stop here, pushing the tyres to the absolute limits of life, he said, and not making a single mistake. They both did that today. Admirably, he said in a video released by a team. Off to Singapore next, I'm excited to see what we can deliver there and beyond. There is plenty of opportunity left in this championship, and absolutely there is. I would love to see Williams on the up. I would love to see Williams do really well. I'm going to have my fingers crossed. So, they're kind of like the big tidbits coming out of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Some of them you may have missed. Give us a subscribe. If you are not subscribed, that would mean quite a lot. Thank you, everyone that is subscribing. Hit that notification button so you don't miss a video. If you love your motorsport, we do a bit of gaming here, rally, etc. Well, we don't literally do rally, we talk about it. I'd probably, yeah, wouldn't end well, would it? But yeah, so there we go. Thanking you. Speak to you soon. The next time we talk F1 is very likely going to be the Singapore Grand Prix preview. Stay safe until then. I did it again. Every time I always press the wrong screen for the outro. Now, slightly embarrassingly, I'm looking for it. You're seeing it go wrong live. Goodbye.